Hi, I'm Grin. I have Mimble Wimble. I'm Bim. I have Mimble Wimble too. Oh, I see your Mimble Wimble is as big as mine. Of course it is. And we also have biscuits. Don't you mean cookies? No. Biscuits. Cookies are bad. Okay. Who's that?
I am Litecoin, and if everything goes according to my plan, I will have your Mimble Wimble soon enough.
What? How?
Using extension blocks.
Oh no, not extension blocks.
Yes, extension blocks. Doom, 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 doom.
Why does he get to be Darth Vader?
Hi everyone, welcome to the first episode of Beam Pulse. Today we're going to talk about which proof of concepts Beam is currently working on. We will address some questions from the members of our community, and we also have a special guest tonight, David Burkett, the creator of Grin++. So let's get started.
This episode title is sponsored by Beam community member MJ. MJ invented a new consensus protocol called Proof of Concept. Forget about your work and your stakes. Prove your concepts instead.
Before we start talking about the proof of concepts, I would like to address some remarks from our community that it takes too long to release the 5.1. And I would like to do it not as an excuse, but rather to explain how Beam works and why it takes more time to release features as the project becomes more mature. So back in January 2019, when Beam was just released, we had quite a small amount of features. Basically, we had a node running Mimble Wimble protocol, and we had a CLI and a desktop wallet for 3 platforms, Linux, Windows, and Mac. Fast forward a little over 1.5 years, and now we have quite a lot more features. And every time we add a new feature, it needs to work perfectly with all the previous ones. And we also need to test the entire metrics, which means that every time we add a feature, it takes more time to perform regression testing, which is the type of testing that makes sure that nothing was broken while we added a new feature. And this is why it takes more time incrementally to add new features as the project becomes more mature. This is by no means specific to Beam. It happens in all software projects, but this might explain why it looks like it takes more time to release the next version. Now let's move on to the proof of concepts that currently are being explored and developed in Beam. And we will start with the Beam contracts. So the idea of Beam contracts is to transform the Beam blockchain from just UTXO-based confidential cryptocurrency into fully fledged confidential DeFi platform. And in order to do that, we're developing new methods to create these contracts inside Beam node that allow to take UTXOs and transform them into the state, which is then managed using Beam script, a programming language that we're currently also working on, which will allow us to gain similarity to other platforms that are already running smart contracts. Another thing that we're currently investigating is how to make Beam work together with Ethereum in 2 contexts, the first being bridges between Ethereum and Beam. And in order to make this possible, we're currently researching how we can make our flight client algorithm work as a smart contract on the Ethereum blockchain. What this basically means is that the contract on Ethereum should be able to understand what is going on Beam chain and to be able to parse and verify proofs that were provided from the Beam chain, and of course vice versa. Things happening in the contract on Ethereum should be parsed and verified on Beam. Another thing we're currently looking at is the ability to create atomic swaps between Beam and Ethereum. And it's different from the bridges with Ethereum because we do not really need to lock value and move it to Beam network and back again. Rather, we need to ensure secure transfer of value between 2 people on both Beam and Ethereum networks in a way that we have today on Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Qtum, and we're also adding other coins. So I think this will take more time to develop. So I think it will be ready in about maybe a month and a half, if we get started today. Another proof of concept that we're currently working on is what we call Beam Application Framework. And the idea is that to be able to extend the wallet using application API so that other people can create applications that run inside the wallet, similar to like today they're running in Telegram or using websites. So this will enable us to expand the wallet functionality with built-in applications that have access to some internal wallet APIs, and also to provide easier accessibility to these applications. I think it will be very useful in all our DeFi endeavors and will provide us with very convenient framework to involve third-party developers in implementing these applications in the future. We are also working on the proof of concept for GhostDAC protocol, and this also will take a lot of time because not only the entire node needs to adapt to the new structure of the blockchain, a tree instead of just a sequence or chain of blocks, but also the Fly client, which is used in our mobile wallets and also in desktop wallets in certain cases, will not work as is with this new structure because Fly client relies on the sequence of blocks to provide the chain proof that can be then verified and make sure that the events that the node claims have occurred in the blockchain have actually taken place. So these are all the issues that we're currently working on, in addition to developing 5.1 release and doing further improvements that are already specified in 5.2 in our roadmap. In this segment, I would like to address the remark that was made in our GitHub on the issue related to the offline address. And the user whose name is Papa Carlo is asking whether adding a single offline address for Beam and also combined with an opt-in auditability is not a slippery slope which might lead to someone requiring Beam users to have only one address and then using opt-in auditability to enforce them to somehow provide the data about their transactions. And this is a valid point. However, what we are trying to do basically is to provide very simple way to create completely offline payments. And this is of course optional. I do not think it will be integrated in exchanges anytime soon. And also opt-in auditability only means that if you really need to do that, you are able to connect the metadata in your wallet to a transaction data on chain and thus prove that specific transactions actually took place. However, it cannot be really involuntarily accessed or in some way enforce you to reveal this information. You can always delete the metadata in your wallet, and of course, no one can see your transactions on the blockchain since they are protected by your private keys. By the way, for someone who was born in the former Soviet Union, this name, Papa Carlo, brought up some interesting memories, and I would like to share them with you in our next segment called A Minute of Culture. In Soviet Union, there were several children's books that were kind of reimagination of other popular books published in other countries. And one of these books was based on Pinocchio, which was of course published originally in Italian sometime late in the 19th century. And of course the Pinocchio story itself was also released several times, but this book was called Burattino, which was taken from the word Il Burattino, which means puppet in Italian, and it told the story of the same puppet boy, but a little bit differently. So in the original book, the name of the father was Geppetto, but in this Burattino book, the name of the father was changed to Carlo, and in Russian, it's pronounced like Papa Carlo. So this is where this name comes from, and in later modern popular culture, this name came to be used as kind of a term for somebody who is working hard and is getting very few things in return. So to work as Papa Carlo means to work hard and basically receive very little for it. So from now on, if you see some Russian guy saying that he's working like Papa Carlo, you know what he means. And now let's move on to our last segment today, in which we talk to smart people in crypto that are working on interesting technological projects. And let's welcome David Burkett, the creator of Grin++. Hi everyone, let me introduce David Burkett from Grin++, I guess. and many other things. So how are you doing this fine morning?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Sure, it's our pleasure. So could you tell a little bit, like, let's start with the projects that you're currently involved with, because there are several, like Grin++ is one of them,
Yeah.
but there are lots more.
Yeah, so my day job, I tear apart miners and try to figure out how they work, how to make them more efficient. So yeah, I don't know how much I can say there, but it's a pretty cool job, digging into the hardware and stuff. But as far as like my open source stuff, I do so obviously Grin++, it's a completely alternative node and wallet to the Grin one written in C++. Then it's let's see, yeah, so lots of stuff there. Then also there's Litecoin. We're adding an extension block, which is sort of like a trustless sidechain, to add Mimblewimble there so they can get a little bit of the privacy and scalability benefits. And some other small things, but nothing worth discussing there. So, yeah.
Nice. How did you get started with programming in general? How did you get to it?
Many years ago in high school, I was a nerd, and I was always fixing computers, messing with computers, and I decided I'd try out some programming tutorials. And back then I was like, this kind of sucks. But then, like many stupid kids my age, when I joined in college, when I went to college, I chose what I thought was just like networking, and because I was like a network administrator and like hardware guy and stuff. So I thought, oh, I go into computer science because that's computers. That's how dumb I was. But computer science is not that, right? It's programming, it's engineering, it's designing software. But I ended up loving it, so I stuck with it, and then from there, the rest is history, as they say.
Nice. So yeah, many years of programming behind you.
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
And how did you get to crypto?
Well, after college, I actually spent a long time in the medical software industry. In college, like the new what was it called? The High Tech Act, I think it was called. But basically, like the counterpart to like Obamacare was this new push for electronic health records. So I tried to I made an EHR, very primitive one, with the hopes of selling it to some local doctors. But then there ended up being all kinds of regulations involved, of course, and I couldn't afford to go through all the certifications. So I ended up working for the enemy instead. So for 5 or 6 years, I worked for a big healthcare company that made, the largest EHR in the world. But during that time, I'd been a big, freedom fan. I've followed, like I've worked on the Ron Paul campaign and stuff, and he really got me interested in Austrian economics. Right? And then so when my first introduction to Bitcoin was back in 2011, where I did not invest, unfortunately. But from the economic side is where I was most interested then. But then a few years later, I got back into it as it was back in the news again. And I started reading more about it, and I was like, this is pretty cool technically, right? It's not just an awesome economic tool. Like that, the technology behind it's pretty clever. So I started digging in and just more and more interested over the years.
Yeah,
until we got to today. Yep.
Till you discovered Mimblewimble, I guess.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, from Mimblewimble, then 2017, the big scaling debate was going on. So, how can we make Bitcoin scale was the question always being asked. And I kept hearing this Mimblewimble thing associated with Andrew Polster and a few others. And I was like, oh, this sounds cool. But I still probably didn't know enough about it to really jump in at that point. So I just kept hearing about it. And then in 2018, I think it was, I changed jobs. I moved, ended up having more time on my hands to kind of dig into some of the technology a little more, and I was like, oh, this Mimblewimble thing's pretty cool. At least I thought. I didn't understand it at all back then, but now I know quite a bit more. But yeah, it's cool stuff. I enjoyed learning more and more about it, and ended up deciding to just start writing some software for it.
Yeah, I remember when I read the paper and started to understand it, and it was very nice, like to see how elegant it is. It's like a very short paper, but the protocol is it's not like this kind of combination of different techniques, one on top of another. It's like one simple concept, which kind of covers both scalability and confidentiality. So it's like, that was impressive.
Yeah, it's very clever. Yeah, very simple from a protocol level, but it ends up being very messy trying to build a cryptocurrency around it. All these different problems we don't have to deal with Bitcoin. But the base idea is so simple and so elegant. It's very nice. Yeah.
Isn't it unbelievable that we don't know who actually published it? It's crazy in this.
Yeah.
Everyone knows everything, but not this.
Yeah, it's very strange to me. Crypto is a different kind of place. There's a lot of cases of this where it's like, I sometimes feel like I'm working with the same person with 3 different names. It's just it's a strange place. You don't trust anybody, but that's the fun of it.
Yeah. So what do you think about like privacy in general in crypto? Because there is a lot of projects, but for some reason it feels like most people don't really care about it, and which is strange because, as you said, like everybody's kind of anonymous there. Like you don't really know who you're talking to. But on the other hand, when it comes to crypto transactions, including, today there is a lot of activity, DeFi, people are doing actual real, business around it, but still everything is transparent and nobody cares. Like, isn't it worrisome?
Yeah, privacy is very underrated, right? I think, I was most interested in the anti-government aspect of Bitcoin, the lack of censorability and stuff like that. But we lose that with too much transparency. As you start to be able to track transactions and stuff, you can start blocking transactions. It's especially with centralized mining the way we have today. If the Communist Party in China or something decided that, hey, you aren't allowed to approve these transactions or whatever, then mining is centralized enough that they could probably pull that off. Now, there's ways around it. There's coin joins and stuff like that for people who really want to do it, but those are so uncommon that they sort of stand out right now. I'd love to see that more of the norm, where you tack on these different privacy technologies or privacy tools like coin joins and stuff. I'd like to see that more of the norm, so that you don't stand out when it happens. Like Zcash with their they have incredible cryptography, right? I mean, it's far beyond my capabilities of understanding, but with 70, 80, 90%, I don't want to give an exact number because I'm not sure, but with most transactions being transparent, the Z transactions kind of stand out. So it's important that more people get interested in privacy, that more people start to take it seriously, so that we can continue to have enough of an anonymity set, have enough people using the privacy technologies that you're actually not just hiding in a small group of people. You've actually got some people to hide amongst. Yep. So that people can't censor your transactions, so that political enemies aren't attacked or whatever. If political enemies can be defunded, that's a serious problem. If their transactions can't go through, there's a lot of bad things that happens with censorability, as you know. So being able to avoid that's great.
Yeah. So for me, like even when I look on financial, not necessarily even political aspect of things, like if you go into any financial institution today and you say, "Oh, hi, you're a hedge fund, so could you show me your positions right now?" They would say, like, "What, are you crazy?" And it's like one of the most guarded secrets. There is the entire field of industrial espionage and things we see in movies. But here you have like, "Oh, I just made a huge position on, whatever the DeFi instrument, Uniswap or whatever, but it's all on Ethereum and it's all completely transparent." And I'm like, okay, aren't you worried that somebody is going to front run you or whatever? But somehow it doesn't work. So I know that privacy is very difficult to sell in general because people are not aware. The technology, in my opinion, moved so
much faster than our ability to, comprehend what it is capable of doing. And I see that in the field of how people use computers and how they install stuff, left and right without thinking about, wait a second, what can this software do to me? And I'll just click that next. It's fine. But they suddenly discover. So the same thing is here. So it's difficult to convince people they should be careful because it requires a lot of knowledge. And we see it in Mimblewimble when we get to all these usability issues that come with privacy, right? It's strange and people have to get used to it. So people don't necessarily understand why they need it. Like, okay, why do I need this stuff? It's the same war we're fighting as well, obviously in Beam, because it's also Mimblewimble very similar. I completely understand.
Yeah, it's tough to get people interested, which it's crazy to me. Like Bitcoin's so transparent, the amounts are transparent. Like the fact that the thought that anyone would get their paycheck in Bitcoin on the main chain is just, it's wild because, everybody's going to know what you make and, everybody knows how much you have in your bank account or whatever. It's just not it leads to all kinds of social problems that just,
do you buy this argument that some people offer that maybe transparency is the way to go? Maybe that's how it's supposed?
No, of course not. Of course you want a secure, a cryptocurrency. You want to know that your supply is what is what it's supposed to be. But I don't buy the premise that transparency somehow makes it a better currency or eliminates bad behavior in some way or something. I don't think that's true at all. No.
What about another argument that I like a lot? I don't have anything to hide. I'm a law-abiding citizen. It's privacy and confidentiality is probably for thieves and dark markets.
Until until big business makes medicines and stuff illegal, and until like governments make basic rights illegal, and you suddenly everything, your whole history is transparent. They can track everything you do. It's just, there's all kinds of scenarios where you get abusive monopolies or tyrannical governments that just that you just don't want them knowing everything about you.
Exactly.
It just seems so very bad.
I used to argue, but then I just invented this phrase that I say, listen, the fact that you have nothing to hide doesn't mean that information can be used against you. The information they have about you. So, better be safe. Better, definitely. So what are your plans like for Grin++? Where is it all going, we wonder?
Well, Grin++, I'm trying to hand off some tasks. I've been doing way too much with that for way too long. Pretty spread thin there. So I got, there's a UI developer now, David Burkett. He's been doing a lot of the front end stuff. I've been focusing more on the protocols themselves. I've been trying to focus a lot on usability. I have some, new ideas released about eliminating the finalized steps. So, Mimblewimble has send, receive, finalize. We have some ideas out there for how to just do send, receive. And then, of course, I have a non-interactive transactions proposal from before. So I've focused a lot on usability and also looking at ways that we can improve privacy. But yeah, I'm trying to move away from the just focusing on the code and supporting this wallet, because it's very time consuming and it's exhausting. So hoping to get more people involved, to get better community development involved, and focus more on improving the protocol itself. And of course, I have Litecoin, where we have a test net that's going to be released at the end of next month. So I'm very busy right now trying to get that all ready to go.
That's great. By the way, the proposals you mentioned, so I will do this kind of overview for our viewers who are not familiar, because I read them both and they're both beautiful in my opinion. So one of the things that are different in Mimblewimble is that it's an interactive protocol where both wallets have to participate in the creation of the transaction. And the way it usually goes is that the sender sends something to the receiver, and then the receiver signs it, returns it back to sender, and then the sender completes the transaction and sends it to the network. So the proposal that David is talking about eliminates the second round. So it's only something sent from the receiver to sender, and then from sender, it can already be sent to the network. So there is no additional step there, which is very, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
It's really improvement, especially if you have an issue in these communication channels, you don't have a good channel, it's very important.
Yeah, it makes it more, we, in Grin, we try to use Tor for our transactions, and it's very, it has serious stability issues, especially in countries where it's censored, right? And where ISPs or the government censors it. So, it's not really an end-all solution. So we also have like this fallback plan where you can like copy and paste strings back and forth, blocks of text. But the whole finalized step, it's non-intuitive. People don't understand it. Like the receiver receives something and then they're like, okay, can I finalize it now too? And it's like, no, you got to send it back to the sender for that. So getting rid of that makes it so it's like, the receiver shares their address and then the sender's just like, oh, here's your transaction, finish it and broadcast it. And it's just a one-way thing instead of, then send it back. And it's a lot more intuitive, a lot easier to think about. So even if you do have these privacy protocols that fall apart, that aren't accessible to everyone like Tor, you can still do it manually in a fairly simple way that isn't, too hard for users to understand. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. And by the way, so moving a little bit, off topic from the crypto, but I don't know if you're aware, but in Belarus, where like a large part of BIM team lives, there are currently kind of very, let's say, intense political process going on, because a long time dictator who ruled them for 26 years is currently in the middle of majorly falsifying an elections, and people are now very actively opposing that. And one of the things that kept this whole protest movement going was Telegram, because they couldn't block it. So they actually ended up with just shutting down the entire internet across,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Just, they called all the major internet providers and just told them, listen, no internet for these people, like entirely. And then people started to use VPNs, and suddenly VPN technology became essential, and, trying to connect via different channels. So I think something like that is also, useful to have this resilience, especially when you're talking about cryptocurrency and processes so.
I know the Belarus situation. I saw some of the protesters there. It's like the largest. I'm pretty sure that was like the one where it's like the whole street, right? It's just filled with, I don't know, probably hundreds of thousands of people. I'm not good at estimating, but lots and lots of people were involved there. It was crazy to me to see something of that scale. It's very interesting. Yeah.
So this year has been crazy so far, and it's not over yet.
No, oh gosh, it can't end soon enough. But yeah.
Okay, so you're doing a lot of beautiful things, and they're all great. Yeah, I hope everything goes well. Is there anything else you want to talk about, ask, say?
No, I don't think so. I appreciate you having me on, though. This was fun. Yeah.
Thank you very much for being here with us.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so see ya.
Yeah.